We gather to give voice to our objections, our concerns, and alarm at recent appointments Mayor Adams has made to his administration. You'll hear from advocates, activists, politicians, and faith leaders, real people living real lives that will be affected by these appointments. You'll hear about our goals and ideas for progress. The mayor is convinced that these individuals have evolved in their thinking. I am not convinced.
Right.
Erick Salgado has been endorsed by the National Organization for Marriage. He frequently spoke against marriage equality and abortion. Where's the indication that he's evolved? Our community needs more than an apology issued at the time of his appointment. Fernando Cabrera not only spoke out in support of Uganda's persecution of our community, he went out of his way to visit the country. He too apologized via Facebook hours before his appointment. As a marriage advocate for years, pardon me if I need a little more concrete proof of evolution. Gilford Monrose spoke out against marriage equality in the past and continued to do so not so long ago. I do not see that that has changed. What I'm hoping for after you hear us today, Mr. Mayor, is that you will think back to the days when you supported marriage equality, freedom, and bodily autonomy, and you will reconsider these appointments.
Yeah!
Our first speakers today, Cecilia Gentili and Lala Zanel, trans activists and community leaders. Please welcome them heartily.
Hi, everybody. It's so good to see you all. It's the first time that I'm talking in public after all this pandemic that we still live in, though. Unfortunately, Lala is not able to make it, but she sends her love, and we share the same sentiment over this terrible news that we are hearing about this appointment. You know, as a trans woman, I am very used to experience transphobia, terrible comments, usual harassment, walking in the streets, in the train, in every place in the city. And I can tell you that transphobia and homophobia are consistently happening in the city at all times. And that's why this is an opportunity, a missed opportunity by the mayor to do something about it. I just wanted to say, it was a couple of months ago that two gay men were attacked in Bushwick. They were attacked with glass bottles, right? They couldn't have died, right? They were attacked while they were like yelled at homophobic slurs, right? As a trans woman, I was punched in the face in the train a couple of years ago on the L train, right? And nobody did nothing about it. So if we think that we are so far removed from homophobia and transphobia in the city, we are totally wrong. You know, we are totally wrong. And this mayor, by this appointment and sending a message that that is okay. And guess what? That is not the New York that I moved from another country to get to live my life. That's not the New York that I want. That's not the New York that I love. And that's not the New York that we put out there that we are. That's not the New York that people believe we are. And we have an opportunity to change that. So for me, it's very important that we send a message to the mayor that this is not acceptable. Why these people get an opportunity to evolve, right? How do like sex workers in prison are evolving? You know, how are they getting another opportunity like these people are getting another opportunity? How, you know, our community that died of like stigma for HIV for years get another opportunity? When are they gonna get another opportunity? Why immigrants in jail are gonna get another opportunity? So why do they get another opportunity? And let's make this very clear. This is not something that we can balance out. It's not balancing this with, oh, I'm gonna put 3 LGBT people in another place, right? This is not something that we can balance. You are a homophobe, you are a transphobe, or you are not. So it's no way for the mayor to balance this out. And at this moment, let's make it very clear. Erick Adams is appointing homophobes and transphobes. And that,
right on.
And that, by being around that, makes him a homophobe and a transphobe. Yeah. And that's not the mayor of New York. That should not be the mayor of New York. What did you think, Adams? That we were not gonna notice? Like, really?
We see you.
I've been here for 10 years protesting about every kind of little shit. What makes you think that I was not gonna do it now? Listen, we need to send a clear message. This is not something that we can live with. As a trans immigrant, the appointment to Moya is really hurtful to me. Moya, you know, I am a trans immigrant. You know, I was detained in immigration in Varick. I know how it feels, and I know that Moya needs to have a person that is a supporter of LGBT people. And that's not happening. So I think we all have an opportunity to voice our opinions, and I'm so glad to be here with all my friends and my colleagues and my elected officials that are always supporting us. Thank you for being here.
I'd like to acknowledge that Councilmember Carolina Rivera and Shaker Christian have joined us. I'd like to also acknowledge that former Senator Tom Duane has joined us. Please welcome Sheer Avery, New York City community organizer for the new Pride agenda. Thank you.
Hello. Good morning.
Morning.
I'd like to begin by acknowledging the power that's assembled here before you all today. In community, we are gathered by a coalition of community advocates and organizations that provide direct services that advocate on behalf of the LGBTQ community. We are here today gathered with our lived experience and our cultural expertise to denounce these appointments by Mayor Erick Adams. Can we all give ourselves a clap? Can we all take a moment to recognize the power that this community has to come together and say, Mayor Adams, you will not get away with this.
Yes. All right.
I'm Sheer Avery. I use they, them pronouns. I'm the New York City community organizer for the new Pride agenda. I'm a young Black and Indigenous non-binary trans femme who has navigated the bureaucracy of accessing public services, mental health support, and homelessness in New York City. I know firsthand the dangers these appointments present to young LGBTQ+ youth in all 5 boroughs who are on the margins, who are left behind, and are targeted by the exact kinds of prejudicial values held by the very people that Adams is appointing. These appointments say more about the mayor's values and his lack of willingness to engage with and serve the LGBTQ community in New York City in good faith. It adds insult to injury that he is a former cop, because it feels like we are being policed. It feels like we are being criminalized and targeted, as we already are disproportionately. According to Adams, in his own words yesterday when responding to today's protest, he said, quote, "Supporting the LGBTQ community has been a political detriment." It is clear that the mayor thinks that we here today are a political detriment to his political career. We are gathered here to say that no, Mr. Mayor, your appointments serve as a detriment to our livelihood, to our well-being, to our ability to live in this city and thrive. Yeah. Shame on you. We will not be used for clout when you choose to show up and support us. We are not a political detriment. We are your constituents, and we deserve to be heard and treated fairly with dignity and respect. There's a need for culture change here in New York City, even in America's stronghold of progressive values. New York is generations ahead of even the nation's most conservative states, but we must acknowledge our pitfalls when we fall behind. We are decades behind on a progressive scale. This speaks to the progressive landscape in New York State and begs us to question what our progressive values truly are, who we are electing into positions of power to represent us. These appointments indicate to us that our lives do not matter, that our voices are not worthy of being heard, even when we speak up and say, no, this is not just. We must build bridges of solidarity, Mayor Adams. We are here to demand today that you join us in our call for solidarity. LGBTQ+ New Yorkers not only need you to rescind these 3 appointments, but we need substantial policy changes and immediate investments for communities who are most directly and disproportionately impacted by marginalization and the pipelines of incarceration to homelessness.
Right up!
The Adams administration must immediately codify the Unity Project into law. The Adams administration must make the Unity Project a city agency. The Adams administration must also work tenfold to address LGBTQ+ youth homelessness. We must work diligently to combat anti-trans violence in this city. We must abolish the vice squad and protect sex workers. And we must end solitary confinement. We must get justice for Layleen Polanco. Justice for Layleen. Justice for Layleen. Justice for Layleen. And we must seek justice and solidarity together as one New York, as one united LGBTQ community in New York City. Justice is solidarity. Can you all say that with me? Justice is solidarity, Mr. Mayor. Justice is solidarity.
Justice
is solidarity. It is Black, brown, and queer youth who will be impacted the most by these appointments. We must not forget that young people like me, who are on the streets, who are not as lucky and as fortunate as I have been to triumph and overcome hardships and difficulties that life has presented to trans and non-binary youth. Their voices must be heard. Their lives must be centered. Young people in this city need our help, and they need an administration that has their back.
Yes.
We need to center collective, restorative, and transformative justice. The mayor is trying to teach old dogs new tricks with this evolution, with them supposedly evolving. Mayor Adams, we ask you, what are you measuring accountability? What does success for growth look like to you? What particular aspects of their growth have you identified to determine them being worthy of such appointments? You need to be responsive to the calls of the stakeholders that are gathered before you and your constituents in this community. The last thing that I'll say before I go is that even in our own community here in New York City, we must remember that allyship is a verb. If you are white, if you are cis, you must center and uplift Black, brown, trans, and immigrant communities within the LGBTQ community. And lastly, there is an unprecedented wave of attacks across this country targeting trans youth. This looks like a collective group of solidarity. We want you to know that we are here for you, that New York City, although the mayor is not on the right track here, we are gathered to say, we hear you, we will fight, we will stand up. Can we take a moment for those trans youth across this country who need a moment of hope? Can we take a moment for them? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to acknowledge Assemblymember Deborah Glick, Assemblymember Joanne Simon, who have joined us today. Thank you so much for your solidarity. I'd like to introduce Councilmember Crystal Hudson. Thank you so much.
Crystal!
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Crystal Hudson. I'm a council member in Brooklyn, and I just want to remind us all that New Yorkers turned out last year and elected the most diverse city council in our history. They elected for the first time a majority women city council. They elected myself and Kristen Richardson Jordan as the first 2 out gay black women ever elected in New York City. They elected my colleague in Brooklyn, Chi Osei, my colleagues in Queens, Tiffany Caban and Lynn Schulman. They elected Eric Botcher in Manhattan, and they even elected David Carr in Staten Island. And by electing all of us into office, what they said was that they were ready to have a city council that leads with love and compassion, and not one or an administration or appointments that are led by bigots. The city council and we have plenty of colleagues and allies standing with us here today to say that we will hold oversight hearings to ensure that city dollars, taxpayer money is not going to programs, to services, to resources for anti-LGBTQ initiatives, that it's not going to bigotry, at a time when we're also seeing an influx in hatred with crimes against Asians, crimes against our Jewish neighbors. We need to make sure that we're electing people and appointing people who are bringing us together and not dividing us. So thank you very much.
Hey, Kristen! Woo! Thank you. Everyone keep in mind, please keep your comments.
Thank you very much. I am Lynn Schulman. I am an out and proud member of the City Council from Queens. And I want to take what my colleague, Councilmember Hudson said in terms of, she mentioned about the budget, making sure that we don't fund anything that's anti-LGBT or homophobic. We need to increase money for the LGBTQ community. We need to make sure that we have Unity Project. We need to make sure that we have LGBTQ curriculum in our city schools, all of those things. And we're going to be working together on that. I am very disappointed with the recent appointments of these individuals who are homophobic. We've come too far for this. All of us have come too far for this. In November, we elected the most diverse city council in its history with clear shared values of inclusion, dignity, justice. These appointments are the opposite of those views. I, along with my colleagues in the LGBTQ caucus, stand firmly against these appointments. A democratic government should represent all of us, and we call upon the mayor to make selections with history that have histories that we can, and positions that we can all understand and support. So thank you very much.
Thank you. The LGBTQI community, but these appointments affect a lot of other communities. They affect our immigrant community. They affect our youth. They affect our reproductive rights. So let's hear from some of those folks. Let's welcome Diane Moreno, Executive Director of New Immigrant Community Empowerment. Thank you so much.
My name is Diana Moreno. I am the Interim Executive Director of New Immigrant Community Empowerment, an organization that serves all immigrants to help them lead a dignified life in this beautiful city. Many of the immigrants we serve identify as LGBTQ. As a queer immigrant woman myself, leading an organization that serves the immigrant community, I am here to say, Mayor Adams, it is unacceptable. It is unacceptable for you to appoint someone like Erick Salgado to the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. It is unacceptable that a community who unfortunately are used to having their bodies and their existence being criminalized have someone who is a bigot, who has a long and controversial history of bigotry, anti-LGBTQ, and anti-woman hatred, to be appointed to an agency that is supposed to serve some of the most marginalized communities in New York City. Immigrants have survived 4 years of Trump, 2 years of a pandemic, and we have helped this city survive that pandemic. It is through our labor. It is through our essential labor that this city was able to keep moving through this horrendous 2 years, and we are still struggling as a community of immigrants to recover. It is imperative for city government who works with community organizations like NYC to build trust in order for us to recover from this pandemic as a community. Do appointments like this build trust? No. Trust has been broken, Mayor Adams. And we are demanding that immigrant advocates are at the table once you cancel this appointment and once you choose someone else, which is what we're demanding, to the Commission of Immigrant Affairs.
They're here.
It is clear with your appointment of the commissioner, who was the former executive director of New Immigrant Affairs, it is clear that you know and understand what an advocate looks like. We are giving you another chance. The Assistant Commissioner of Immigrant Affairs must have a long record of advocacy for all immigrants. For all immigrants. We stand in solidarity with our LGBTQ siblings and people in our community who escape persecution, discrimination, and violence to come to this country and live their lives fully deserve just that from the beautiful city of New York, and we will not stop until we get that. Thank you.
Our immigrant communities are affected, our LGBTQI communities are affected, and our faith communities are affected. Please welcome the Reverend Elder Pat Baumgartner.
All across the country right now, from low-level courtrooms and regional school boards to the Supreme Court of this land, the rights, the humanity, the dignity of God's queer children is under attack. And sadly, disreputably, disgracefully, and in a wholly non-faith-based manner, our newly elected mayor has joined the ranks of those aligned with bigotry and hatred with his hiring an appointment of this unholy trinity of Mr. Cabrera, Mr. Monrose, and Mr. Salgado. It's no secret that Fernando Cabrera is no friend or ally of the queer community in New York City. He has been vocal about his animosity from here to Uganda, traveling to that country to praise a government's bill subtitled "Kill the Gays," saying Uganda had taken the Christian position. An apology after that hardly seems adequate. I have a member of my church right now forced to flee Uganda because of that very bill, after his face was plastered across the front page of a newspaper and he was targeted for death. Are you going to apologize to him, Mr. Cabrera?
Yes.
To his family, to his elderly mother who lost her son's support in a context where that was absolutely critical for survival? Are you and Mr. Montrose going to make sure all the agencies like Sylvia's Place and MCC New York's Food Pantry and all the services funded by queer faith-based communities like Metropolitan Community Church and like Unity Fellowship and like Love Alive International Sanctuary of Praise and like Congregation Beth Simchat Torah, do you even know their names? Who not only serve the spiritual needs of the queer community, but who feed the poor and the hungry without distinction, who stayed open during the most terrible days of the pandemic. This city asked us to keep the shelter open, asked us to keep the food pantry open. Are you going to make sure that those of us housing the kids others drove to the street, those of us providing space for a medical clinic for people in need, get the same and equal support from the city as other faith-based groups? Are you going to make sure that trans people who are incarcerated get the kind of care and protection they need? Are you going to make sure that sex work is decriminalized? Because I don't know what Bible you are reading, but the Bible I'm reading says that sex workers and tax collectors are entering the reign of heaven at the front of the line. Check it out. Check it out. Are you going to make sure that queer people in long-term health care facilities are taken care of, and that there is comprehensive sex education in our schools that includes our lives and that is accurate? Are you going to make sure that there's funding for the LGBT Health and Human Services Network? Have your so-called faith-based hatred and animosity, has that dissipated in your heart with the magic eraser of a cushy appointment? Actions speak louder than words, and your actions against queer people and women's health care options have spoken volumes. What do you plan to do to demonstrate that some of the hate-filled animosity that clearly filled your heart is now gone? The person you purport to serve said, "It's not those who say to me, 'Lord, Lord,' who are part of my reign, but those who hear the word of God and do it." Clearly, you have failed to hear the universal faith-based word to love and care for all people equitably and justly. The most important thing about any faith tradition is the way its practice makes the world a better, safer, more just and equitable place for everyone. What it gives to people, not what it takes away from them.
Yes.
And one of the most important things about the country we live in is the separation of church and state.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what gives me the right to preach the truth that God made queer people, and you guys the right to lie about it. And protects both of us when it comes to social, governmental, legal, and judicial practices, and says that faith-based animosity has no place in social policy or political practice. A lot of people think people like me should just turn the other cheek. But here's the thing. I've actually been to seminary. I've actually studied that Sermon on the Mount. And I'm very clear that the person that was speaking there was talking about leveling the playing field among all God's children and making those inclined not to do so to treat us equally. I think that person was talking about not waiting for what's just and right to roll in on the inevitability of time. Jesus was counseling people on the downside of people in power to rise up and take the upside, to stand up for ourselves, to make those who are saying we are not human beings relinquish that saying and treat us justly and equally. So Mr. Mayor, Mr. Cabrera, Mr. Salgado, Mr. Monrose, if you want trouble, you found it.
Yes. Yeah. Make some noise.
Around identity, you have found the people who will oppose you every step of the way. We are the children of Stonewall. We act up, we fight back. And history has clearly demonstrated, no matter how long it takes, no matter the personal cost, we will prevail.
We will prevail.
Because
we will.
And what is good and right, and the God who made us queer is on our side.
Do it. That's a thing to take away today. Hear the word of God and do it.
That's right. Yeah.
Please welcome Councilmember Chiosay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Black trans lives? Black trans lives? Black trans lives? Black trans lives? My name is Councilmember Chiosay. I represent the 36th District in Brooklyn, New York. I'm black, I'm queer, and I'm disappointed.
Yes.
We are here today both in response to a stinging insult and to prevent a real danger. The tax dollars of LGBTQ New Yorkers are about to begin paying the salary of a man who has waged war on our rights and dignity at home, and traveled abroad to applaud our imprisonment and death. Beyond the grave and dignity his appointment would mean for us, it diminishes the utility and value of any agency in which he serves.
Right.
Respect for the humanity of one's fellow New Yorkers must always be a prerequisite to public service. Fernando Cabrera has failed that most basic test.
That's right.
His appointment must be rescinded. But this is beyond a few appointments. Men like this, taking positions of public authority, are reflective of a broader disregard and even disdain for the LGBTQ community. As we challenge the ascension of a few undeserving individuals to leadership roles, let's carry this energy over into necessary policy changes to uplift and defend our people. Trans women are being unjustly held at Rikers, are subject to conditions adjacent to torture. They must be freed. To drop the passive voice, we must free them.
Yes, we must.
LGBTQ youth fill our homeless shelters. My demographic, often fleeing abuse and neglect. We must house them. And black trans women are murdered at a higher rate than any other demographic of American. We must protect them.
Yes.
We are lawmakers. Policy is in our hands. As we gather here and resolute in what we fight against, let's remember the dignity and humanity we are fighting for. Thank you, everybody.
lovely woman Rosenthal has joined us today. Thank you for your support. Please welcome my personal champion, Councilmember Erick Salgado.
Thank you.
These appointments made me incredibly disappointed, sad, and angered. These appointments are not what's best for New York. These appointments are hurting New York. Religious fundamentalism is hurting New York. It's hurting children. It's tearing families apart. Let's be clear about something. The fight for LGBTQ equality has not been won. It is not over. We are not moving on. Let's look at what's happening around this country right now. Look at what's happening in Florida. Look at what's happening in Texas. We need to talk about what's happening around the world. What's happening in Russia. What's happening in occupied Ukraine with kill lists. And what's still happening in Uganda right now. So I'm proud to stand with my colleagues in the LGBTQ caucus with the united LGBT community in New York to denounce these appointments, to say that the fight for equality is not over, we're not moving on, we're to continue to fight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Erick. No, my friend, it's not over. Not as long as I'm breathing, it's not over. Rafi Kadavi is the legal defense director for If, When, How. Let's hear about how this administration is pulverizing our reproductive rights. Please welcome me.
Can people hear me in the back? Yeah? Okay. You know I'm old because I printed out my talking points. Hi, my name is Rafa Padilla Kidvai, and I'm here as a New Yorker. I'm here as a queer person, a Muslim, an immigrant, and a parent. I'm also the director of the Repro Legal Defense Fund, which fights the unjust criminalization of self-managed abortion by providing real, tangible financial support to people who are investigated or arrested for ending their own pregnancies. It is clear to me that the Mayor of New York is putting the health and safety of New Yorkers at risk by putting homophobic, anti-abortion people in positions of power. As a queer person of faith, I understand that faith has been manipulated to re-entrench oppressive power dynamics like patriarchy and homophobia. It troubles me that two appointments, one to a citywide faith leadership role and another to the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, positions that should bring comfort, trust, and solace to New Yorkers, will instead be used to perpetuate harm and cruelty. A policy or culture that forces people to remain pregnant and give birth is exactly that, harmful and cruel. At a time when we are seeing a national escalation of attacks on people seeking abortion, alongside attacks on trans and queer people, New York's mayor should be working to create a safe haven for the most marginalized amongst us. The Repro movement believes in ensuring individuals and families, including queer families, trans families, immigrant families, families of faith, have the resources and a healthy environment to make decisions about their bodies. This means creating the families we want through access to abortion, contraception, and other health care. It also means raising the children we have free from state violence and intrusion. Our communities are already traumatized from surviving so much state and interpersonal violence, and the mayor's actions will come at particular cost
to people trying to access life-saving reproductive health care. The mayor's actions show he doesn't want to protect New Yorkers. He would like to control and oppress us. But we know nothing is more powerful than solidarity. And it is through our collective action as queer and transparent, and as those who believe in our right to make decisions about our bodies, that we resist and rebuild the world we want and need to live in. Today, I join my movement colleagues in calling for the resignation of Erick Salgado and Fernando Cabrera from their respective posts in city government. We, activists, people who fight for reproductive freedom, and people of deep faith are more than happy to put forth other qualified candidates for these positions. Folks who look like us, understand us, and will do everything in their power to serve us. Mayor Adams, you must act today. It is your job to make sure that all people seeking abortion and LGBTQI+ folks know that they can trust in the leadership of our government. The time is now. Our safety, our lives, and our families cannot wait. Thank you.
So let's get back into the political, shall we? Let's welcome the brand new president of Stumble Democrats, Justin Sanchez.
Howdy, everyone. Do you see what this looks like? Black, brown, trans, femme, queer. This is the LGBTQIA+ community. And we stand here before you to ask that you see us and recognize what we need. And what we need, Mr. Mayor, is for you to put the best people into positions of power. Homophobes and transphobes and people that are anti-choice are not the best people to put in positions of power. What we're asking you to do is sit with the LGBTQ community, to rescind the appointments, to abandon the appointment of especially Fernando Cabrera, and make sure that you are codifying the Unity Project. We understand that things happen in the course of elections and politics are politics, but right now is the time to govern. And governing means putting the best people in power for all New Yorkers. And that is what we're here to ask you today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Please welcome Councilmember Kristen Richardson-Jordan.
All right now.
Shame! 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 I want to take a second to talk about Black people.
Yes. Can we take a moment?
Can we take a moment? Because I am the representative for Council District 9 Central Harlem. And I want to point out, Mr. Mayor, that your supposedly pro-Black agenda is looking a lot like white supremacy. See, the logic of true Black liberation is about liberating all of humanity, and it definitely includes Black queer people. And the logic of white supremacy is about oppressing others for the privilege of an elite group. That is why all of these oppressions go together. I am proud to be a representative who stands in the intersection. We have that with this council. We have reps who are women and Black, queer, and we represent all the complexity of humanity. And all of that needs to be represented in our appointments, and people who are not representative of that need to be in solidarity with that. So I end as I begin with shame, 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 shame. And I just want to add that it is not too late to do the right thing and take corrective action. Thank you so much, Councilmember. No, it is not too late, but Pride Sunday will be too late. Please welcome Jackie Painter, representing the Lambda Independent Democrats of Brooklyn.
Okay now. Let it loose.
All right. Well, we have a problem here in this city today, obviously. As everyone has seen, this is what our community looks like. The mayor's appointments are supposed to reflect not only the city, but the values of the city. These appointments, these homophobic, transphobic, anti-immigrant, anti-women, anti-queer, anti-everything appointments are dangerous to not only our community, but our youth, our trans siblings, and the city as a whole. So I'm representing LID, Lambda Independent Democrats of Brooklyn. We are Brooklyn's largest and oldest queer political group. And we are calling on the mayor to rescind these dangerous appointments. As the mayor, shame on you. Shame. You are not protecting New Yorkers. You are putting us in danger. You are putting our most marginalized groups in danger. Period. Period. I stand here with District Leader Julio Pena as well, a member of LID. And again, let's rescind these appointments.
Community is broad and our community is diverse. We have many different faces. Please welcome Trevon Mathers from the New York Community Center.
Hello, my name is Trevon Mathers. I'm the Director of Advocacy and Community Engagement at the LGBT Center in New York City. Thank you all for being here today. So many of us are here feeling betrayed, confused, and angry because we know that homophobia and transphobia don't belong in this city. In a city where 40% of homeless youth are LGBTQ, where LGBTQ people have the highest rates of mental health disparities, and trans people face escalating rates of harassment and violence, we can't afford to have leaders who don't have the best interests of our community in mind. The stakes are too high. Mayor Adams committed to serving all New Yorkers, and in this city that includes all LGBTQ people.
Period.
Yes.
That includes those living at the intersection of multiple marginalized identities. We deserve affirmation, we deserve dignity, we deserve respect, and appointing anyone with a known history of homophobic and transphobic views serves as a failure to all of us. And it sends a dangerous message at a time when our community needs evidence of support. We are asking the mayor to rescind the appointments of Gilford Monrose and Erick Salgado, abandon the appointment of Fernando Cabrera, and make good on his promise to meet with LGBTQ leaders. We don't need more rhetoric about tolerance and inclusion for our community. Instead, we demand action that recognizes our humanity and makes us whole. We urge Mayor Adams to do the right thing and to help make this city one that is reflective and supports all of us. Thank you.
To acknowledge Councilmember Sanchez, Assemblymember Fernandez, and Councilmember Gail Brewer. Please welcome longtime advocate of our community, leader in our politics, Alan Roscoff, president of the Jim Allen Liberal Democratic Party.
Greetings, hello everybody. Thank you, Mayor Adams, for bringing us all together. Mayor Adams has given us the middle finger. And I say to Mayor Adams, here's my middle finger. Mayor Adams, why are we on the steps of City Hall? Why are we out in the park? You're our mayor. You're here to serve us, the LGBTQ community. You've turned City Hall into an employment agency for homophobes.
Yes.
That's what you have done to us. 2 years ago, you stood in Brooklyn and you denounced housing, gay-friendly housing. You came to the ribbon cutting and you said you didn't want us in Brooklyn. That's your history, Mayor Adams. There is absolutely no excuse for him to be hiring hateful people who denounce us. And he says they've evolved. How have they evolved? By reading a statement that Mayor Adams' press office has put together?
That's right.
That's evolving?
No, it's not.
No. Mayor Adams, you accept their apology. He hasn't insulted you. The only ones that could accept his apology is us.
That's right. And we don't.
And we don't accept it.
Not at all.
We don't accept it.
at all.
So, Mayor Adams, I'm going to leave you with one gesture. You give us the middle finger. We give it back to you.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I would like to give a moment to Senator Brad Hoyle.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Thank you for Equality New York. Thank you to my colleagues here and all the advocates. I'm State Senator Brad Hoyle, and I represent some of the queerest places in Manhattan, I'm proud to say. You know, we hear a lot about the mayor going to zero bond. How about zero tolerance for homophobia? That's what I'd like to see. In the same week that we have the Supreme Court taking an anti-LGBTQIA case, in the same week that the government of Texas is going after the parents of transgender children, in the same week that the Staten Island St. Patrick's Parade is denying LGBTQIA people to march, we have 3 homophobic appointments from City Hall. Now, 1 appointment might be an oversight. 2 appointments is a mistake. 3 appointments? 3 appointments is a troubling pattern. Mr. Mayor, rescind these appointments immediately. We want New York City to succeed, but if it is to succeed, you have to bring all of us together. Yes. All of us, our entire community. Am I right? Yes. So I stand here with State Senator Tom Duane, who 30 years ago, led fights in this City Hall Park on behalf of the LGBTQIA community against Mayor Giuliani. We should not be here again.
But we are, and we'll be back again if we have to be.
So once again, Mayor Adams, rescind these appointments immediately. Thank you very much.
Please welcome Melissa Scott, District Leader.
Come on, Melissa. Come on, girl.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Melissa Suarez. I'm Democratic District Leader from Queens. I am one of 2 transgender elected officials in New York State. I am also a member of the Adams Transition Team. I am a member of the Equity Committee. I was one of the leads of the Equity Committee. I'm here today in solidarity with LGBTQ New Yorkers to say how disappointed and angry I am at these appointments that we see in a city of 9 million people, that these are the best people that can lead our city into the next generation, where we have thousands of people that wake up every morning with one idea in their head: what can I do to make New York City better? And instead they come up with these 3. The LGBTQ community of New York and all of our friends and allies have spent years trying to get rid of Fernando Cabrera, and like a bad seed, he keeps popping up again and again. We have let it be known that he is not our friend, his friends are not his friends, his allies are not his friends. And if you have a choice, you can pick him or you can pick us. Our community represents 1 million New Yorkers, And we have access to the LGBT leadership team of Mayor Adams, both of them. And they are friendly and supportive, and in the end, nothing happens. It doesn't get better. I am a spiritual person. In my world, I am a spiritual leader, but my spirituality is based upon love and diversity and inclusion.
Yes.
And spirituality is not about the words you say, it's about the actions you do. These three men, we're told, have evolved. What have they done? They could have given time, they could have given money, supporting LGBT youth and housing and health care. Where are they when it comes time to our pride? Why do we never see them in our spaces when it comes to change the way New York does its business?
That's right.
And we never do, and we never have. And we know a truth that on the other side of the Hudson, the forces of repression are gathering. There are 23 states that have anti-trans legislation in their houses of legislation against trans youth, against trans healthcare, trans housing. They are trying to make a trans identity illegal in the United States. And so I ask you, are we safe in New York?
No!
No! The idea that we have had all these great, great leaders that are here today, and still that we're forced to ask the simple question, are transgender and LGBT people safe in New York?
No!
With further appointments like this.
No! Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Jason Rosenberg, National Organization for Housing Works, on behalf of Reclaim Pride and the Queer Liberation March. Let's give him a round of applause.
Great.
When queer lives are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up for that!
When queer lives are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up for that!
When queer lives are under attack, what do we do?
Stand up for that!
What do we do?
Stand up for that!
What do we do?
Stand up for that!
Good afternoon, my name is Jason Rosenberg and I use he, him pronouns.
Hello.
I'm the national organizer at Housing Works, an organization fighting the dual crisis to end HIV, AIDS, and homelessness nationwide and globally. I'm also a member of the Reclaim Pride Coalition, the group that organizes Queer Liberation March each year. I'm speaking to you all today with rage. What we're facing now is not new, but a stunning resurgence of vicious attacks against the LGBTQ+ community. From Texas to Florida to Iowa, we're seeing our trans and gender nonconforming siblings under attack. Specifically our TGNC youth with policies violating gender-affirming and life-saving health care. Here in New York City, we have a brand new mayor, only 55 days old, appointing people in senior leadership positions who have explicitly harmed queer people with their homophobic, transphobic, and anti-choice bigotry. Fernando Cabrera visited Uganda after they passed the Anti-Homosexuality Act in 2014, a bill that was then formally introduced as the Kill the Gays Act. Cabrera called Uganda a godly country for these actions. Erick Salgado has vocally opposed gay marriage for years and was endorsed by the National Organization for Marriage during his mayoral run in 2013. Are these people that should be governing over 800,000 New Yorkers?
No!
No! And when community groups and LGBT electives, many who we've seen today, ask him to rescind these appointments and even simply ask why, his response, I respect your thoughts, but I'm going to do what's best for New York City. Does this sound like the mayor that did the flying fuck about queer people?
No!
So Mayor Adams, we call on you to rescind these grotesque appointments and apologize to queer New Yorkers for dismissing our pleas.
Apologize!
These appointments are not only insulting to queer New Yorkers, but can and very likely will, if we don't fight it, materialize into real harmful policy. So when I say rescind, you say now. Rescind!
Now!
Rescind!
Now!
Rescind!
Now!
Rescind!
Now!
One more time so he can hear it. Rescind!
Now!
Rescind!
Now!
Rescind!
Now!
Thank you.
You know, our community has a lot of different views. We have some disagreements amongst ourselves. But the one thing I know, the one thing that we all agree on is that these appointments are not only insulting, they're wrong. They're going to put us behind. And I have a statement here from Brian Downey of GOAL, who is our LGBT police organization. And he says, "There is no place I'd rather be today than standing up with you, but doctors have other plans for me, as doctors often do." The fact that we need a rally in this city in 2022 only underscores the point made far too often that queer people are still not at home no matter where we are. In my heart, I want our mayor to succeed. In my heart, I want our city to succeed. I feel the need to point that out. I never thought I would have to ask this question, and especially of this mayor, who I have known to risk his life and to bring about change for communities. Mr. Mayor, can we call this city our home? Can we rely on your administration to protect us? I believe in forgiveness, and I believe in compassion, and I believe that there can be a way back for almost anyone. And I'm sure that there's a way back for these individuals, but it's not through the government of our city. We are not just talking about marriage equality. I only talk about marriage equality. We are talking about giving a voice to people who believe we are less than others, who stood with people who wanted to sanction killing us, who believe that we are being us immoral and irredeemable. There's no place in our city for government like that. We can talk about reconciliation tomorrow. Today, we, the Gay Officers Action League, call upon you to immediately rescind these appointments. Our city is watching, our nation is watching, and indeed, queer people and those with hate in their hearts around the world are watching. Withdraw and rescind now, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Brian, wherever you are. We hope you have a speedy recovery. From our newly appointed council member, Gail Brewer, who was our Manhattan Borough President and has supported our community for decades. I join those who are contacting you regarding the appointment of 3 people who have in the past been critical of the LGBTQ community and who have supported the criminalization of abortion. I too believe that many of us have opinions that evolve over time, and certainly some New York elected officials have views that have changed when they are elected to higher positions. I served as in the city council with Fernando Cabrera, and I know that he worked successfully to address issues of concern to his constituents in the community and in his church. However, the New Life Outreach International Church has not been supportive of LGBTQ rights. Appointing Pastor Cabrera, Pastor Gilford Monrose, and Mr. Erick Salgado, all of whom have criticized LGBTQ community and the community's phenomenal efforts, same-sex marriage and other issues, is a mistake, especially when you have an excellent record on LGBTQ issues. Gail, I love you, but I'm not sure about how excellent. Let's move forward. Today, whatever he did for us is in the past. So please welcome our final 2 speakers, Brian Ellicott of Princess Janae Place.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Brian Ellicott. I'm with Princess Janae Place. I'm also an open and proud trans man. I use he, him, or they, them pronouns. Now, we all stand in solidarity with each other, but sometimes we do need to talk about masculinity and how it shows itself. And what Erick Adams is doing is toxic masculinity.
Woo! That ain't right.
Just how we, as trans men, should support our sisters, we need him to support us. I have a partner from Texas, and to think that there are little youth trans kids in Texas right now who think that maybe New York might be a better place for them, it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't feel that way when, as an Irish person, I still can't march in Staten Island with my partner. It doesn't feel that way when I know that my immigrant siblings are under attack. And it doesn't feel that way when we know that that queer people in Europe are now in fear and may come to the United States. All of those things are why this administration actions are unacceptable. We're a community, and as someone said earlier, ally is a verb. All of us are allies to each other, regardless of how you show up. Butch, femme, non-binary, gay, lesbian, bisexual, straight, all of that. It all matters, and we're supposed to be here to support each other. That is what spirituality and faith is about. It's about leaving the world better than when you left it. Thank you very much.
Woo! To close us out, please welcome longtime advocate, former state senator, my good friend and colleague in the fight for marriage equality, Tom Duane.
Former senator is gender non-specific. I served with former senator, now Mayor Adams, and his actions are profoundly sad, disappointing, and fury creative. He's got a good record on queer issues and spoke out on the floor on queer issues, but was he a leader on queer issues? Not that I remember. I remember he voted okay, but the Reverend Ruben Diaz voted for the Dignity for All Students Act, but he was still a homophobe who was vitriolic in his condemnation of marriage. Former Councilor Cabrera, when he was elected, he could do whatever the hell he wanted and we could criticize him. But he is not elected to this position, he is appointed. A homophobe has been appointed. There were many more people here earlier. Just think of this, if we were in Uganda, they would be gone because they would be in prison, and Cabrera supports that. By the way, some of them would be dead. They would be dead. And that who was going to be sitting over as in the administration of Mayor Adams was going to make him head of the mental health. I mean, you know what the rates of suicide of people who struggle with their queerness is, young and old? To put someone like that anywhere near mental health is a disgrace. To put homophobes in an immigration office is despicable, because all the time, and I can say this as a former politician, politicians are always trying to jettison us. They say, well, we can get more bills passed if you leave the queers out. And immigration is the prime example of that. This is a disgrace. It is so disappointing. It makes me furious. Voting is okay, but leadership is what counts. And the mayor's not showing leadership. He's not showing leadership for our community, for any members of our community. And I can't even think of a member of our community who has been appointed to any high-ranking position in the Adams administration. So what kind of signal is that sending? So enough. These people do not deserve to be appointed anything. We beat back the Reverend Diaz for being on the Civilian Complaint Review Board. The council voted on that. Well, there are lots of council members here, and they should stand, and they have been standing united with us to get rid of the homophobes from the Adams administration and put some pro-queer and queer people in high-ranking positions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Just to close us out, we want those appointments rescinded. We want you to meet with us. We want the Unity Project to become a staple in your administration. We want you to talk to us like you did when you needed our support when you were campaigning. I personally will never take the microphone in your support again if you do not meet with us, if you do not support this community and rescind those administrations. Thank you so much for coming.
You know where we are. New York.
And at this moment, let's make it very clear. Erick Adams is appointing homophobes and transphobes. And that,
right on.
And that, by being around that, makes him a homophobe and a transphobe. Yeah. And that's not the mayor of New York. That should not be the mayor of New York.